The sponsorship cycle is a beautiful cycle. Everything is in circles, just like this little cipher right here. And it really starts with looking at what it is that you're doing, your initiative, your project, your organization. What is it that you need? Okay? First and foremost, what do you need and what do you want? Okay? So that's how I break it up. And the best way to kind of do that is look at a budget. Create a budget. You probably already have one created. But the way that I separate my needs and wants is I have my min budget, my minimum budget, and my maximum budget, right? So minimum is what you need to get it done. Maximum budget is is your optimal and what you want. And usually you might want to create like a mid budget because that's where you probably will end up. That's where we usually end up. And while you're creating that budget, there's a few other things that you might want to do. Start to look at your budget line by line, item by item, and start to say, are these things that I could get donated? And that's called an in-kind sponsorship. So if you get something that is in kind, say for tonight's budget, event budget. I don't know what the budget was, but the water for this event, right? There's a grocery store down the street that might want to support this event, and they might donate in kind all the water. So that's a line item that you could put beside it, create another column, and either you have monetary asks or in-kind asks, right? And by separating your budget in that way, you're really starting to identify what you need in your sponsorship acquisitions and your sponsorship outreach and what you're looking for and the types of partners that you're gonna try and get. So you now got a budget, you know what you need, you know what you want, you know what you could get donations for, and you know what you just need money to make happen. That clear with everyone? Is that a practice that you guys sort of do already, or yeah? Awesome. If you don't, you might have your own way of doing it, but that's kind of where I start at. Now when you're starting to look at all of those line items on your budget, I create another Excel sheet, and this is when I'm saying this is our team and the whole family that's working on this. We start to identify who are different partners that could help us alleviate some of those budget needs or wants, right? And in the monetary section, we create in the monetary section categories. So because a lot of partners, if you're working with a partner, they will likely, not all, but they will likely want some kind of brand exclusivity, right? So let's take, for example, Scotiabank. Scotiabank partners with a lot of different festivals in the city. Scotiabank Caribana or Caribbean Festival, Caribbean Carnival, or you've got Scotia Nuit Blanche, Scotia Contact, et cetera, et cetera. TD Bank likely is not going to come on as a partner for some of those, right? So you create these categories, and there's a lot of different categories. Let your mind go wild with the categories. Like depending on what initiative you're working on, if you're working on an event, there's specific things that would make sense to an event. If you're working on an album as an artist, there's specific things that would make sense. If you're working on a documentary, there's specific things that would make sense. So think about the things that make sense for your project, your initiative, right? Make it always go back to what you're doing. Break out those categories. So let's say for an event, you've got telecommunications, you've got Rogers, TELUS, et cetera, wind, public mobile, all these different ones that you could reach out to. You go to banks, TD Bank, Scotiabank, RBC, et cetera, PC Bank, like list them all out. And now you've got an Excel sheet with categories and the different sort of sub groups within that. Make sense? Those are your monetary asks. You want to do that for your in-kind asks as well. And the in-kind sometimes is a little bit easier because if you just look at your budget and it says in-kind right on your budget and you need water, well, where are the places that you could go to get water? Well, maybe we could hit up Nestle, but going to Nestle for a $200 donation of water might not be the best. Look, maybe we'll go to a corner store nearby or a grocery store, or like just really kind of use common sense in that area when you're looking at your in-kind asks. If you need and really start to think about in your budget a lot, you can eliminate so much of your budget in in-kind donations. Like if these video cameras that are recording us right now, if they rented these, they could potentially have got a discount, or they could have got them in-kind from Headshots or VizTech, right? If you're recording an album, I'm just giving different examples because I didn't get to ask you guys if you're artists or organizers. So if you're an artist and you need, canvases for a project that you're working on that's about a social justice issue in Toronto or around the world, and you're going to be painting visual arts about that. Maybe you could go to Curry's to give you in-kind paint and canvases. Cool? So now you've identified all those things and you've got this Excel sheet, but you got to start to think about who knows these people, because it's sometimes difficult to get to the right person who makes the decision, right? So the first thing that we do as well is we look within our own team, and then we look within the circles of our family and our network, and we start to say, okay, does anyone within our network have a relationship with any of these companies that we've listed here? And sorry, stepping back to that real quick, think about compatibility, right? So don't just list any company, because you want to maintain the integrity of what you're doing. Right? Hopefully, if you don't care to, then by all means, go wherever you want to. But I'm trying to inspire you in this conversation to really think about what is your integrity in your project and your initiative, and what partners would make sense with you. So what are compatible companies? And a good way of doing that is starting to look on their websites, think about their mandates, what is their company's mandates, and also a good tactic is look at like-minded initiatives and start to look at who are their sponsors. Right? So a lot of times, like, we'll look at other festival websites that are within our domain around the world or even locally, and we'll say, oh, they sponsored these guys, maybe they might be interested. Or that might even open up a new category in our mind that we never thought about, right? So that's another thing that can help you in identifying that, making that bucket list of partners that you're gonna go after. As you start to go after them and you look at your own network and start to say, okay, we have those internal networks, you have to look at who is your team that is gonna handle partnership, acquisition, sponsorship in kind. When you do a big shotgun team effort, sometimes it's not centralized and it's really hard to manage, right? And you have a lot of kind of confusion going on. Oh, I hit up this person, da da da. So it's sometimes good to centralize that within one of your team members, or like a department, depending on the size of your organization. If it is you doing it all individually, these like Google Docs and organizing yourself and really taking notes on everything that's happening. Oh, I emailed this sponsor at that time. I did a cold call at that time. Really organizing yourself will enable you to really keep that process undergo while you're managing the rest of the projects, right? Because partnership acquisition is just one stream. You have to get the money, but then you have to do the whole thing, right? So it's nice if you have the benefit of doing that. There's also a lot of third-party companies that will do sponsorship acquisition for you. So you could look at these types of companies, depending on the size of your company. You could go after an acquisition company that would do that sponsorship for you and handle that. But you still are working with them, but they're doing the relationship building and doing all that on an ongoing basis. And a lot of times they have a lot of these relationships. So right now, Manifesto, internally, we do our own sponsorship, but we also have an acquisitions company that's doing it for us year round.
What is that kind of?
Pardon me? Okay, so it's a really good question. Usually when you are working with a third-party company, what's the incentive for them? There's two different ways of working with them. Sometimes they'll ask for a retainer, which is a monthly or a yearly or a time period based fee. So by every month we pay them $5,000 and they do sponsorship for us on an ongoing basis. And in addition to that, they might take a percentage. Because we don't have a big budget at Manifesto, there's the company that does it for us. They just take a percentage, and their percentage is 20%. They take 20%, but it's usually between 10 to 20%, I would say, that an acquisitions company would take. That's where you want to be looking at. And when you think about it, say someone brings you $10,000, but they did all the work, they might take $1,500 if it's a 15% deal, but then you got $8,500 to do the work that you're trying to do, but you didn't have to deal with all of that back and forth, right? And a lot of times this acquisition company will come with the relationships that you don't have, right? So just them sending in the proposal, you're getting a better chance at getting that than not. Sound good so far? Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you give an example of some of those acquisition companies?
Sure. So there's the company that we work with is called Sponsorship Canada. That's the company that we work with right now. So I would say that's who I would recommend, but there's a lot of independent people as well. If you just start to reach out into the community and start to put the word out that you're looking for sponsorship, there's independent contractors. So there's independent contractors that we've worked with in the past, but you really want to trust the people that are representing your brand or your initiative, because if they're representing it inaccurately, then if you do land a partner, sometimes the way that it's been presented is not what it actually is, and then then your integrity is on the line. So you really want to make sure that the people are hardworking and that they understand your products and that they're representing them properly. Okay, so now you've got a good list. You know what you need, you know what you want, you know what's in kind, you know what you need monetary. You've got a good idea of the companies and the categories that you're going to go after. You've created a tactic for how you're going to go after them. Then what we start working on is a package and a proposal. So in this package and proposal, it's really important to start to look at what are you offering? What are the different products that you're offering? So let's say you're a musician. You're trying to get sponsorship for your album. Okay, around your album, what are you doing? You're gonna do an album, so there's the physical album itself. You're gonna have a website for that album, I'm sure. You're probably gonna do some pre-marketing for that album. So there's gonna be flyers or something, that street marketing. There's also probably gonna be some launch events or maybe a tour, right? Those are all individual products. So you can recognize that you can sell that as an entire package, or you can sell each thing individually, right? And it's important to know that yourself so that when you're going into meetings and people are asking you questions, you already have that already outlined. So I'm going to show you kind of a package and what we do going through a package. So this is the package that we use for the festival. And right off the bat, we use visual imagery to give the partner a sense of what they're getting into. So right away, right off the bat, you can tell you're at Dundas Square. You can tell that there's thousands of people. You can tell they may not know what manifesto is, but it says Festival of Community and Culture. They may not know what that means yet, but at least they can kind of get a sense. And if they're interested, they can actually even see the types of people that are coming, right? Right off the bat, off page 1. And so many of these companies that you might be reaching at, even some of the smaller ones that you may not think are getting proposals on a daily basis, right? So you really want something that stands out, that if it's sitting on their desk in the pile of a bunch of other paper, they're like, oh yeah, that looks amazing. I want to check that out. And that has some kind of like reference so that they'll just associate it with you and your brand. So we put a strong image there. Then next page, right away, if they didn't know about us, if they don't know the name Manifesto, right away, we're going to tell them what we are. We are Canada's largest celebration of urban arts and culture in Canada, right? So that alone on the second page is like the what. What are you? Off the bat. So if you're a dancer and you are award-winning dancer, the top B-girl in the world, whatever you are, say it on the second page, right? Or sometimes on the first page because you want to grab that attention. But clearly identify who you are. And don't be shy, like be bold. This is a big statement. Canada's biggest urban music and arts festival, that's a big statement, but we claim that and we are. So we say it. The next thing that we do is we really find testimonials to be important, right? So taking anything that might have, if you've done initiatives in the past, if you have press statements, so a lot of ours are press statements because we've been doing Manifesto for 7 years, but even if you're just starting a new initiative, brand new, you've never done anything in the past, go out to your community. Ask elders in the community, why is it important for an initiative like this to happen? Or ask other people that have done projects like this before, ask a local business why it's important, and have testimonials saying this project is important because, and then quoted by who, right? So you don't have to have big ones by the Toronto Star or any of this stuff. Get wherever you're at, work with wherever you're at. Cool? Like the first year when we started Manifesto, I didn't have any media outlets or anything like that. I went out to artists in our neighborhood, and I went out to local businesses that I thought were important, and we just started to have those conversations. Yeah.
Did you go to them, physically go to them, or did you write a proposal letter to them, like as beginning as a start?
Artists or to who?
When you were starting out your whole manifesto,
I would just call people, or I would send an email and I'd say, hey, can you send me like a one-line quote on, I'd tell them the idea, hey, Manifesto, we're trying to build like a platform for young artists to celebrate themselves and, do events at the center of the city, and tell them kind of what we're at. Do you believe in this idea? And can you give me a one-line quote of support? Okay. And then people usually within a minute on their BlackBerry send you a quote back, and you can include it. And the other thing is, in press, so as you start to get press, it's really important to throughout collect testimonials and collect different types of testimonials, right? Because just Toronto Star said this in their newspaper, so we can quote it and we can put it in our proposal And we can say Toronto Star said it, right? And it's important that as you're starting to build out your proposals, you want to have different kinds of testimonials because you're speaking to different audiences, right? So say I'm trying to get a big artist on board, I would likely have a quote from another artist who performed the festival that said, oh, the organizers were amazing, I had such a great time, I would do it anytime, and I'd come back, right? Versus a corporate sponsor who might be interested in the media impressions, and so I might put some of those things. Cool, so testimonials are really important. Then starting to include some quantifiable things, so like really quantify what you're doing. And again, I'm giving you an example of an organization that's 7 years in. If you're just starting out, you can quantify that too. We will represent 3,000 artists over the next 5 years, right? We can say we have, so we say Manifesto has presented 1,000 plus artists. If you're just starting out, we will, or in the first year, you can make your statements however you need to frame them, but these little bite-sized quantifiable things are really important because you have to recognize when you're presenting, say I'm making a presentation to, you guys are the TELUS board right here, right? And I'm making a presentation to you guys. You probably, if the decision maker isn't physically in the room, you're gonna go back to your executives and have to present this information. So you're taking notes in this and you're gonna want really bite-sized things that in a report back, you can just say, Manifesto has presented 1,000 plus artists, right? So make these things make it easy for the partner to just digest because you know your projects and you know your initiatives like the back of your hand, but they don't know it and they're only getting 10 minutes with you to kind of hear about it. So these types of facts are really, really interesting. One thing that I'm tweaking in this partnership deck, so you guys are seeing kind of like one in progress, but you have to really know the audience that you're speaking to as well, right? So if I'm going into an executive team's office and they don't know who Onyx is, or they might not know who Lunis is or Hudson Mohawk, we all know them, and the people that come to our festival come in thousands to see them, but someone in an executive team office maybe doesn't know who they are. So know your audience and speak to them. So I'm gonna probably change this page to say Manifesto has presented 1,000 plus artists, including the names such as, and just choose one or two artists that they might know. Like most people know who Chaos or Kanon or these people are, so that they've hit our stages, so we're allowed to mention that they've been a part of it and mention just a few names rather than like this big list that they might not know. So really know your audience and then speak to your audience. But again, if I'm sending this out to an artist that I know that they're in the community and I know that they're gonna know all those names, I'd probably include this longer list for them. This page is all about showing the breadth of your partnerships. So I'm speaking again with Manifesto 7 years in. We have partners like TD Bank, Ontario Arts Council, so it's a really big list. But the year one deck that we had, it was all grassroots partners, right? We didn't have one corporate partner, we didn't have one funder, it was all grassroots partners. And the power of this room right here, you could all leave this room with 3 community partnerships if you wanted to, right? So really use these types of events to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and are you like-minded? Could we, if I did an initiative, would you send that out to your mailing list, etc.? And then you could build up a long list of community partners and build a page like this. Our first year deck for Manifesto had about 30 community partner logos on it, right? And when we stepped into a sponsorship meeting, we could say we don't only represent us, but we represent these organizations and all of the people that they represent. And by having about 30 community partners, it shows that you have credibility, that you have integrity on a grassroots level, that you're able to make these types of partnerships, and these groups will give you their logo to include in a partnership package. So you're representative and you have integrity in the work that you do. And then again, as you start to grow and as you start to develop, adding like some of the more known names onto the mix always helps as well. This page is all about demographics and audience impact. So really starting to understand for yourself, it's good just for yourself to know who is your audience and how can you articulate what audience you're serving, right? So if you're putting out an album, what are the types of people that are gonna listen to that album? If you're making a documentary film, who's gonna watch that film? Who's gonna be sitting and watching those films? If you're doing a big festival, who's gonna come out to those things? Who's checking out your website? And the way that you can find out a lot of this stuff is just by like doing surveys, like on a super grassroots level, do some surveys and incentivize the survey. So if you do an online survey, the first 100 people that sign up to this survey will get a free shirt or some kind of benefit for them taking time to do this. So some of the things that you might want to consider is like what type of ethnicities, for Manifesto, our partners want to know what type of ethnicities are coming out. What is the age range? What is their annual income? How many people came out last year, right? Are they going to come back? That's a really important one. And then, are they male? Are they female? And then, what is the marketing impact that you're going to have? How many printed materials are you going to have? How many website impressions do you get? How many people come, unique visitors, come to your website? And you want to be able to articulate these things in a quantifiable way so that they can go back to their teams and say, oh, we really need to get involved with this because of these reasons. And it's important to know, again, your product, because there's two streams of being able to access corporate funding. There's probably millions, but two like really distinct ones. There's marketing, right? So going after marketing, and that's where they're going to be interested in this type of stuff about how many impressions and how is their brand going to get represented and how is their brand going to be associated with your brand, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get your audience, right? And you're giving them access to that. So do that with the knowing that you're doing that and do it properly and represent your communities properly. Don't sell out your community. And then the second stream is to make sure that the second stream is corporate social responsibility, which is oftentimes called CSR as an abbreviation. And that's when companies want to do good. Part of their mandate is to better the environment, let's say, or to create jobs for communities. So this one might be less about having their brand everywhere and supporting like meaningful, socially developed projects. So know what your products are, and then it also helps you identify which departments you're going to reach out to. Cool? Any questions, just stop me. You want to also think about what can you offer and what was your ask, right? So many people forget to ask. They'll go into a meeting and they'll present and it's all amazing, and then okay, shake the hand, we'll talk later. But you came there for a reason. Make sure that you leave there with an ask, and they know that you're going to ask, right? But you might be shy to talk about money or whatever. They know you've come in to talk about something. Talk about it, because that's the objective of the meeting, right? And if you don't talk about it, they know that you're not really savvy enough business people and you may not classify yourself as business people, but you're doing a transaction, you're doing a partnership with someone, and they're going to want to know what they get and what you get. Fundamental bartering. You're bartering in this. We're bartering with different things. So we've outlined it very clearly. 60K, you'll get these certain things. 40K, you'll get these certain things, right? And you usually want to buffer these up a little bit because they'll negotiate down. We've never, ever once got that, right? So they buffer it down, right? And then make sure that at the end of it, you have a contact in the end, all right? The other thing that you might want to create, because you have a short window of time to impress your partner, is a little video. So I'll show you this video real quick. I'm not going to show you the whole video, but this video very quickly identifies how many people are there, that there's high production value, that there's the types of music that they can hear, and then they hear directly from the source what this is about, right?
Projects, which is best known for holding an annual celebration of.
So I'm not going to go through that whole thing, but I just wanted to create a video. Then what we do is take that PDF deck that I showed you and that video, and we start emailing people and sending them packages. And the whole objective of that whole deck that I showed you and that video is to get your foot in the door and have a face-to-face meeting. At that point in the process, in the sponsorship cycle, you're just trying to get a face-to-face meeting. Because when you get into the face-to-face meeting, that's when you can really start to have a dialogue. And when you get into that face-to-face meeting, it's so important that you don't just go in there and say, blah, 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 this is what we want. Because you really want to listen and say, what do you want? If you stop and you listen and you say, this is what you want, that's where you'll actually create the winning partnership. Because if you know that their objective and their marketing plan for the year is that, let's say it's TELUS, and TELUS wants to have, they're going after high school students, their demographic that they're trying to reach is high school students, and they're doing an initiative, a campaign that's your 5 best friends free phone calls. If you know that, you can go home and create a whole proposal that meets them and give them almost a turnkey solution to what their objectives are, right? And that'll set you apart from everyone else that's sending in proposals because you listen to them. So what we do is we'll take a package or we'll take something like that. And so we will have that meeting, we'll listen, and then we'll go back and we'll create another package, right? And this package is customized now directly to the company. So this one's for Scion, and we say this is it's a similar package, but now these are specific ideas for Scion. So we're going to do we're going to shuttle vehicles, and they're going to be Manifestor Scion cars because it's customized to what we heard that they want to do, right? And then this really kind of speaks directly to them. And here's another example, just so that you can see a couple of examples. So this is another example for, say, Heineken, Manifestor times Heineken. So again, we've already had the meeting, we listened to them, what are they trying to do, and then we'll create this. And then there's a few ideas about different partnerships that we could do with them. Isolated price points are already identified in them, and then we go back and forth and we say, do you want to come on board? And in addition to these specific packages, you're already going to get what all the other partners get, but we're giving you customized things for your brand, for what you're looking for in your campaign for 2013 or 2012 or whatever year it is. So you go after those types of partnerships, right? And now you have a series of meetings and you go through negotiations, and hopefully they result in signing a contract. You want to have a very detailed contract and make sure that you have a contract, because if you don't have a contract, at the end of the day, you may not have the partnership. We've had multiple partnerships up to the day that we were about to send out a flyer with the logos on it, and then we've had to back out and we didn't sign a contract, so we had to take their logo and the whole thing, and we think that we have X number of dollars and we don't have it, so sign a contract. Once you've done that and you've got this far, usually some of these packages, there's an identified idea, and then there's either a team member on their side, a team member on our side, or you bring in a third party to do the activation itself. So you've been talking about, you're going to bring this big booth for Heineken at Dundas Square, but who's going to bring that booth? Who's going to source the tent? Who's going to make sure there's staff to serve all the beers? There's a company that does that, or you have to place someone on that. I know we're running out of time, but I'm going to wrap up real quick. Is that okay? Okay. So then, now the event or the product or whatever happens, it happens. You want to make sure throughout that your partner is updated the whole way along. When the press release goes out, they get it. Make sure that they're on your lists so that they feel a part of it. Not only feel a part of it, they are a part of it, right? They are an actual partner. So they feel it all the way along. They're getting updates. They know what's going on. They come to the events. They're treated really, really well. They're having a great experience. And then at the end of it, you follow up. Right away, you follow up as soon as you can with a package similar to this. So there's a lot of reporting and packaging that you can create. This one is 2010 festival report. It starts with a big image of what it looked like, a nice big quote, and then a thank you statement. We thank them first and foremost for being a partner, and then we go into an event recap, each event that happened, what happened at it specifically. And then we said, because we already proposed to them all these things and we told them our demographics and all that stuff, well, did we live up to it? We tell them the actual stats. So all of these events, that year we had 46,000 people come out to it, broken down by event. These are the types of media that came out. And accompanied with this is a DVD with videos, as well as any press clippings that mention their name or have their logo on it. So they get a full package afterwards. And it's really important that when you deliver that thank you package, you give the thank you package, but you're also really talking about, okay, how do we talk about next year? And you want to, if it was a successful partnership, you ideally want to talk about moving this from a one-time partnership to a long-term partnership. So maybe you move from a one-year partnership to a multi-year deal. So now we've got a 3-year deal with this partner, and we're set, and we know that that's going to happen year after year after year, right? And it's also really, really nice to give some kind of keepsakes. So maybe you print a nice photograph, or you have a poster from the album, or the poster from the film that you're making, so that they can put it up in their office, right? These packages and email stuff's all good, but try and give some keepsakes so that they can put it on their desk or they can put it on their wall, because you always want them to remember you, right? Maybe give them a shirt, a Manifestor shirt. Oh, now they're wearing it on Sunday at home with the kids, and they're looking at them and they're like, oh yeah. And they always have you in the mind. So when they're thinking about young people, they're thinking about festival, they think about you, right? You want to kind of infiltrate up into their business, and that you become an integral partner to what they're trying to do as well. So that's kind of a cycle. Hopefully I had to unfortunately rush through it, but I hope that you guys got something out of that. And is there any questions?
Yes, the question.
So would you recommend, because I noticed for your cycle, you target first a more general package towards the organizations, and then you, following the meeting, you do a more concise, detailed, personal package, customized package. Would you suggest putting in some ideas for activations or creative concepts or anything like that into an initial package, just so they can see that you're thinking along those lines?
Yeah, I think that for the way that we've done it, sometimes we put some of those initial ideas. It's important to do a lot of research on the company before you do a cold call. So if you look at their website, a lot of them have already announced what their plans are, but we tend to leave it a little bit more generic in the beginning, but use like their language in that initial proposal. So it's not fully generic, right? But we really hit so say we go to a website for a company, and their aim is targeting young people from this age to this age. They're trying to do this, and that. And we, in the email that we're sending them, kind of identify where the alignments are, and then send them a generic deck. But yeah, we've included certain elements, but we don't like to flesh it out completely, because sometimes they're just like, no, they say no before they even have the opportunity of saying yes. So we kind of get their feet wet. Yeah, the way I said it over there is like, imagine you're dating someone, right? Like eventually you want to, maybe get married and have kids and all that stuff. But in the initial, you're just kind of giving a little back and forth, just getting to know each other a little bit.
Don't give them the whole
You don't want to give them everything yet, right? Because sometimes when they give it all, they're like, oh, I don't like that you cut your nails and like leave them on the bed. They find that out after a little while, right? So similar, like that's what I'm just saying, like, the way that we kind of try and do it is not give them everything up front, but definitely make sure that they know that it's not just a generic ask, right? So you hit the keywords within the emails and like maybe a few of the items in the package or one page. That makes sense. I'll show you. I know I'm way over time, but I'll show you for like, say, Rogers. This is what we would send in. So for a Rogers package, like we would send in, this is our generic deck, as I showed all of you guys before, right? Quotes from different people. Sorry, froze. Audience impact. And then we would create a page with some partnership 2012 with their logo on it, and then some ideas about, this is language basically from coupled their website and our website, and like we obviously align, right? So we're telling them that. And then we give them some stuff initially. And then we even go further than that into, like after this will get us into the meeting, and then we've really fleshed out a specific customized package for them. But so to answer your question, yes and no. Yeah. Cool.
Have you had an instance where someone has come to you for a sponsorship opportunity, but it's really late in the game and you don't know how you're going to, I guess, service that partnership, but you don't want to necessarily turn down?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. So this, in terms of the cycle, I haven't talked about time at all, right? So if you're going after a bigger organization, bigger company, a lot of the companies, depending on their fiscal years, so you can sometimes try and research when their fiscal years are, but they usually break up their budget reviews in quarters. So the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. They're usually making budget decisions on the next year in the fourth quarter of the prior year, right? So say for 2013, majority of major corporations have already allocated their budgets in November, December of 2012, right? They usually leave slush funds throughout each quarter to make sure that if an amazing initiative comes up late in the game, that they'll be able to activate it. But and especially if they've got surpluses, if they did better than they were thinking of doing in 2012, or if they're doing really, really, really bad and they're like, oh my God, we need to do some big marketing initiative. So depending on what's going on in those annual or quarterly reviews, they might switch things. If someone comes to you late in the game, it's really important that you recognize your integrity's on the line when you sign on a partner, and they're expecting certain things usually, right? So if you don't think that there's enough timeline to really service them properly, it probably does you worse to take the money this year and not really be able to deliver to them what I would do is I'd maybe try and incorporate them in a smaller way that year. Like maybe they could provide volunteer, you haven't printed your volunteer t-shirts? Okay, take the money and put their logo on the volunteer t-shirt, right? Find a smaller way to get them involved, but then invite them to the event and make sure they have a great time, and then follow up right away afterwards and bring them on for a partner for next year, right? And one other thing to speak about is it's important for you as you develop your project plans to have like a scope revision date, where it's like, if I know my festival's in September and I know I go to print with my flyer in August, I know that it's going to take 2 weeks to get the flyer design and everything, that I can't be selling sponsorship that includes logo placement on flyers really after July 1st or whatever it is, right? So identify in your calendar, your project management calendar, where is the drop dead date for your initiatives, for where you need partners to come on board. Any other questions? You're all lovely people. I'm thankful that I got to spend time with you, and I hope that you guys succeed in any initiative that you're trying to get sponsorship for.